And GISH here. I have a quick update for you, a very important and special update. We have Giles here. Giles, where are you right now?
Right now, I am in Lviv, in Ukraine, which is just across the border from Poland.
Okay, so you are in Ukraine right now, and we're running this Change Life for Ukraine specifically. I think everyone has been asking what's happening there. What are you seeing there? Can you share a little bit about what you've been doing there?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've just arrived in Lviv. I'm actually going to be heading further east. I'll be in Kiev and then heading further east to where a lot of the conflict is most intense at the moment. If you remember earlier in the year, we raised money towards wheelchairs and an ambulance as well. So I'm actually going to be joining the ambulance and going out and picking up people with that. So I look forward to sharing those stories, in the coming weeks. But I wanted to share a couple of stories that are hard to share, but I think it's important because what is happening here in Ukraine is a very brutal and very violent war. Of course, all wars are violent, but this is on a scale that I think most people I know have not seen. And what we're doing is an amazing thing, but I think it's important to remember why we're doing it and why it's important. I was at a hospital today, a hospital that I'm going to be documenting in the coming weeks. And because Lviv is on the border with Poland, a lot of casualties from across the country come here because it is a relatively safe space to be. So the hospitals are not being attacked. So it's a place which I guess is a hub for a lot of the injured people across the country, including a lot of injured children. And I met two people whose stories I'll be telling, and again, we can share later. I'm not going to use their names right now for various reasons, but they were happy for me to share what happened to them. One is a young girl. And, imagine this for a moment. She was with her family in a basement in the eastern part of Ukraine. They were hiding there. And a Russian tank approached them, and they could see that the Russian tank, the turret was coming down and aiming at the basement. So her whole family, her grandparents and her parents, her brother, all dived on top of her to protect her. And they fired into the basement. Every other member of her family was killed. They all died literally protecting this young girl. She's incredible, but she has lost everybody. And that sacrifice that family made is hard to comprehend, and again brings back the reality. She now is living with a disability, and she will be one of the people that hopefully we will be able to help. The other story is an amazing young girl who is 14, and her car, as they were escaping, was shot at, and all her family members were very badly injured, and she was shot in the legs. And it's amazing. She's a tiny girl. She managed to push everyone off the driver's seat, get in the car herself, and even with bullets in her legs, she drove for 40 miles and managed to get her whole family to safety. Again, just an incredible story, but she's now living with some serious injuries. But, that's just two examples of the kind of stories I'm hearing hundreds of. And that's the reality of what's happening here is families, children, just suffering devastating loss and injuries. And so, I know it's hard to then come out of this and say there is positives. The positives are civil society here. The Ukrainians and the activists, people who have been living with disability their whole lives, people from all sorts of community coming together to support those facing new injuries. And I met up with Uliana today, she's badass. I mean, this woman she had a spinal cord injury many years ago. She's a wheelchair user, but she is the world wheelchair karate champion. She's very, very insistent on showing that people living with disability are not victims, that they can live full lives. And as I like, for example, for her with wheelchair karate, she was in Bucha, which many people will be familiar of. It was occupied by the Russians, who carried out many, many atrocities there. She actually led a convoy of about 100 vehicles, and they broke through a Russian checkpoint, and she was the lead vehicle driving that whole group through. I mean, she really is an incredible woman. I met up with her and her husband Vitaly today. We had a really lovely chat. I've met them a few times. They're always so full of energy and life, and what they are doing, because they have many years of living with spinal cord injuries, is they're setting up a group to help new spinal cord injury people to adapt and to learn. And it's so important, this peer-to-peer learning. I know when I was injured and lost my legs, my arm, what really helped me through was meeting other people who'd gone through something similar, and who were able to show me that there was hope through it. And that's what they're doing. And one of the things we spoke a lot about was wheelchairs. I spend a lot of time in a wheelchair. I sometimes have to use a wheelchair. I understand the restrictions that come with that. Unfortunately, in Ukraine at the moment, for most people who have injuries that require wheelchair use, they can have to wait up to 6 months to a year until they get a chair. Then when they get the chair, they tend to be the kind of standard, very basic chairs. What that means is normally you have to be pushed around. You have to have somebody else pushing in those chairs because they're very hard to move yourself. So what they're trying to do is to raise the funds so that they can get these really active chairs. And then they can teach, especially young people who have got these spinal cord injuries, how to use these chairs so they can get their independence, so they can be out and they can be doing things and really, again, allowing them to empower themselves and to have their lives back. It's a really important project. And what we're hoping is, I wake up every morning and I check how we're doing on the GISH fundraiser, and well, I say every morning, every 5 minutes, I'm kind of checking. And what was great is I was with Uliana today, I was with Oliana yesterday, various people, and I'm showing them and the tears in people's eyes to see the support we're getting from the world. And I'm pretty confident we're going to break through that target of 100,000. If we can break through that target, if we can even get up to 150,000, what we will be able to do with 50,000 extra is to get 50 of these really high performance wheelchairs, get them to Ukraine really soon. And it will mean, like the children I was just talking about, will have the opportunity to be trained to use these chairs so they really get their independence back and are able to live with full dignity and full active lives.
Yeah, I mean, with all that's happened, I think the least we can do is give people back their autonomy and give them a life where they can lead on their own terms. So we're at 92% right now. We can get to that 100. We have a few more days of the hunt. And remember, it's not about you donating, you yourselves donating. It's about you reaching out to your world, your network, your community, and saying, hey, I just need 10 people to donate a small amount, and we can get there and change lives. And with your help, Giles, and these incredible activists that you're meeting with, we can make a meaningful difference.
And one of the things I spoke about with the activists I've been meeting here is actually, it's really important. And I think this is very important. This works both ways. I know so many people living in communities around the world that are feeling very overwhelmed by everything that's happening. And they look at the news, they see everything going on and think, what can I do? I feel completely powerless. By donating, by supporting, by getting involved, it just shows that actually together we are stronger. Together we can create change. And there are lives here in Ukraine that have been devastated, that we unfortunately have no control over, but we can make sure that we are there as a helping hand as people rebuild their own lives. And so I think it's not just the people that we're supporting, but I want everybody that has supported to know that they made a difference and they are not powerless and their voice is not unheard, and that together we are changing lives.
Well, we appreciate you so much, Giles, and the work that you're doing. We're extremely proud to work with Legacy War Foundation and you and Random Acts to pull this off. What are you going to be doing there for the rest of the week? Tell us what your plans are while you're there.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm in Lviv at the moment. We've got some really interesting projects. I'm going to go back to this hospital that I spoke about, and I'm going to do some other stories so that in the coming weeks, we'll be able to share some of the stories of some of the patients there. But I'm also trying to show and remind people that even in conflicts, life does go on. So hopefully I'm visiting the Lviv Opera House where the ballet has returned. People are incredibly resilient in Ukraine. They want to show life goes on. Culturally, it's important for them because, part of what Putin and Russia wants to do is destroy the culture of Ukraine, the identity of Ukraine. And people here are so proud of that, whether it be cooking borscht or whether it be at the Opera House. And so I'm going to be documenting that side of life because life does go on. People adapt. And if there's one country that represents the resilience of people, it's Ukraine.
Well, we appreciate you so much and the work that you're doing. And thank you, Gishers, everyone who's donated so far. You're making a difference, and we really appreciate you. It's great to get messages direct from Giles here on the ground. So please set up a fundraiser. And every little bit helps. So just get someone else, everyone to donate $10. You don't have to do it, but get people and then every bit helps. And then helps the volunteers there, helps these amazing activists and volunteers that are working hard there. And we got to restore the fabric. And if we do that with marginalized communities, it's going to make a profound difference. So
yeah, and what I would say as well is I won't name her because I won't want to embarrass her, but somebody who's an activist here who I really admire, who is very, very strong, very stoic. When I showed her that total, I could see her eyes watering. And I started crying as well, because it just shows people are not forgotten here. It's really important. It's beyond just the money. It's about people knowing here that the rest of the world has not forgotten them, because naturally when a crisis happens, a few months later, they start to see a drop down in donations. They start to see the news media turning away a lot. That's why it's important that we're here right now, because it's a reminder to people. I'm actually going to be on Ukrainian TV tomorrow to talk about what we're doing. So as I say, all of this works both ways. It's not just about what we're donating. It's about how it empowers all of us to create change. So thank you all. Love you all.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you, Giles.
Bye, everyone.
Stay tuned.
Bye.
More.